Hello everybody, my name is Dr. John Howlett and I am Programme Director for Education at Keele. My photograph is there on the right hand side of the slide. This is a set of slides and a presentation talking a little bit about education at Keele and the programme that we offer and the sorts of things that you might have if you come to Keele to study with us on our programme. So I hope you enjoy the slide set. Every slide has an audio recording attached to it, and on each slide I'll be talking through and explaining a little bit more about the details of our course. I hope you enjoy it and good luck. The first thing to say is congratulations. You've been offered a place at Keele, albeit at a very difficult and unusual and surreal time within the world. However, despite the problems that we have at the minute with the COVID-19 situation, education must go on. Your education and of course education as a subject. So whilst this is a very unusual time for all of us, and we do appreciate that particularly in schools, in a strange way perhaps there is no better time to take a step back and to consider what we mean by education, what education should be, what education could be, and what it should involve. And it's those sorts of questions that, as we shall see throughout the slides, are the sorts of questions that we at Keele and the education team at Keele feel very strongly about and really form the focus and the basis of our programme. So as I say, congratulations and enjoy the slide set. Okay, so before I start talking about the content of the course, I'd just like to expose you a little bit to some of the teaching approaches and some of the issues that we cover on the education programme. So what I've done, I've devised here what I've called a teaching activity taster session. Now obviously if we were meeting in person, we could do this far more interactively. But nevertheless, I'd like you just to take some time to look at the slides that follow and just to think about some of the questions that we pose. There'll be audio recordings on each slide whereby I discuss some of the issues. And I want to focus on, very topically, coronavirus and education, and looking particularly at the ways in which the government response to the pandemic, which involved for a lot of young people the closure of their schools, how that has impacted and affected opportunities, and how it's raised questions about the nature of teaching and the nature of assessment. One of the things that we do on the course is really look at contemporary issues, look at cutting edge debates, look at the sorts of things that you will be dealing with if and when you go into the teaching profession. So have a look at this activity. There are on the offer holder day pages as well a couple of other activities that I've put together. Again, looking at important questions around education, looking at the sorts of things that we do on this course. But look at the slides that follow. They look at coronavirus and education and have a think about some of the issues that they raise. After the activity, I then talk a little bit more about in detail about the course itself. Right, okay. So this is the sort of thing that we do in our seminars or our tutorial classes. I'd get you to think a little bit about an educational issue and a topic, and then I'd get you to present your views and your opinions back to the group, and we'd have a discussion. Now, I'm not there in person with you, but what I'd like you to do is to consider these two questions. First of all, how do you think education has been affected by the government's response to the coronavirus pandemic? And what issues do you think coronavirus has raised for education? These are very, very topical questions. So what I'd like you to do is just to spend maybe 2 or 3 minutes either on your own or talking with people around you, if there are people there, and just write down or sketch down some of the thoughts that you have about this? How do you think education has been affected, and what might some of the issues be? What are the issues that this pandemic has raised about education and educational provision? So I'll stop the record. I'll stop talking now. Spend 2 or 3 minutes having a think. Come back when you've done that to the next slide, and I'll talk you through what I think some of the issues might be. Okay, so hopefully there you've had a chance to write down in a list or just jot down or talk to someone about what you see as the main issues that have affected education via the government's response to the coronavirus. I've just got here, before I sort of address some of the issues, a number of headlines. Now, these are variously taken from the BBC web pages, the Daily Mail, the Guardian, and you can see that, lots and lots of coverage of what's been going on in schools, what's been going on in education, and how the government's response to the coronavirus has, generally speaking, negatively impacted upon children. And newspapers and magazines and the BBC news pages, Sky News and so on, are really good sources of information for getting to grips with, what's happening right now in schools and education. And this is no exception. And as you can see there, I've got 4 headlines here. I could have picked 400. There's lots and lots of issues around the topic. So, this gives us a sense that it's really, really relevant and urgent that we think about it. So on the next slide, I'm going to sort of talk about 4 points, and hopefully it'll match up with some of the things that you've written down yourselves. Okay, so I asked you to think a couple of slides ago about what you thought were the main issues that coronavirus has raised about education and education provision. Now, I was thinking about this, and I came up really with 4 main issues, and hopefully they'll match up with some of the things that you've written down as well. So the first thing that I thought was really important was the role of the teacher. You had a situation over the summer where the government asked teachers to give predicted grades, and those were the grades that students would be using, putting on their CVs. The governments then said to the teachers, once they'd done this, no, we're not going to use these, we'd rather use our own algorithm. So, in a sense, what that did was to effectively say, well, we don't trust the teachers. We don't trust the teachers to give an accurate, record, an accurate grade for the students they teach. So it raised a question about the role of teachers and the trust that governments have in teachers as a profession. Okay. The other thing that the coronavirus response has done is to make us question, how do we assess students? So, we typically assess students in this country by examination. Yeah, GCSEs and A-levels, it tends to be the written exam. Well, we don't have those anymore. Yeah, it's not been possible to have examinations. So we've had to use a different method of assessment. In this case, predicted grades, coursework, internal tests, and so on. So that's made us think, I hope, about, how do we assess students in school? Should it just be on examination, or can we assess them in other ways as well? For example, coursework, or in-class tests, or class participation. It's also raised perhaps the most important question of all, which is how some students are advantaged over others. Now, when education went for most students online, it rapidly emerged that thousands of children in this country didn't have access to laptops, didn't have access to online platforms, and if they did have access to online platforms, often it was only for a couple of hours a day because maybe the family only had 1 PC or they didn't have smartphones. In other words, whilst a lot of children have smartphones, tablets, PCs and so on, there are still a significant minority that don't. So some students are very much advantaged over others. Now, the point of school and education is that it tries to minimize that gap. It tries to bring everybody together under the same roof, with the same teachers, with the same opportunities in the same buildings and so on. But what this pandemic has done, and schooling children at home has done, has shown that there's enormous gaps between the wealthiest students and the less wealthiest students. And inevitably, even in normal circumstances, what we find is that the wealthiest students always do better academically than the less wealthy students. So again, you've got to ask yourself, well, how can we try and make education fairer for all? What role can I play as a teacher? What role can my school play in trying to reduce that gap? And that perhaps is a very, very important, perhaps the most important thing that this whole government response has exposed. The last point, and again, hopefully you've touched upon this, is how do children learn best? Yeah, I don't think it's any surprise for us to know that students don't learn best being taught online. You learn best when you are, face-to-face contact with another human being, with another adult, with a teacher, with your peers. That's how you learn best, in groups, face-to-face groups. So when you remove that, inevitably that causes problems. Some students can learn online perfectly well, a lot can't. I don't think there are many students who learn better online than they do in classrooms. So again, that surely makes us think about the way we teach, the sort of environment we want in our classroom, the sorts of ratio of numbers we want between pupils and teachers. Students are more successful if they're taught in small groups with a teacher than if they're taught in large groups. So what this coronavirus response has done is to raise huge questions about the nature of education. And what we do on our course here at Keele, we consider these issues. We consider the issues that are at the forefront of education. We consider the issues that are being debated amongst policymakers, amongst politicians, by teachers. And by doing this, what we aim to do is to really prepare you well for future careers in either teaching or education. And just from having a quick look at this little exercise here, and there are others as well on the web pages, so please look at those alongside this presentation. What we're trying to do here is just to show you some of the approaches we take, some of the questions we ask. So hopefully you have found that instructive. But as I say, think about the issues, think about what's going on in education, and really start to develop your view on these problems and have an answer. Okay, we can guide you, we can help you, but ultimately, you've got to develop what you think about education. So thanks very much just for sort of bearing with me and looking at these questions. In the next few slides, I'm going to get back to talking a little bit more about the details of the course. Okay, you will have seen from the previous slides an example of an activity that we typically do in our seminar classes. We are very much of the opinion that debate, discussion, argument is important in learning, and we encourage that. So alongside your usual lectures, you will also have a seminar class for each module in which you'll have the chance to engage in debates and discussions using video, audio, news media, and so on. But what I want to focus on now is really the nuts and bolts of the course. So in the slides that follow, I'm going to talk through some of the details around the course and really tell you what you will be studying when you come to Keele, in terms of the modules, in terms of the assessment, the content, and some of the other opportunities that our course will give you. So the first thing to say is that there are two kinds of education degree at Keele. There is a single honours education degree where you will only study education, and there is a combined honours degree programme where you will combine education with studying, say, history, English, mathematics, and so on. You probably know already which of these programmes you wish to study. However, in both cases, you need to pass a certain number of credits to graduate with the degree. So each module is 15 credits. So if you are studying for a single honours degree, you must take and pass at least 270 credits in education, which works out at 18 modules. If you are taking a combined honours degree, you must have at least 135 credits in education, which works out at 8 modules. So typically, if you were doing a combined honours degree, you might do 8 modules from one subject and 10 from another, or 10 and 8, depending on what your interests are. Within the structure of this program, it also means that there is scope to do modules away from education for both degrees. For single and combined honours, you will have the opportunity to take a module that isn't in your principal subject or subjects. This is called an elective, and electives typically can include maybe learning a language or doing a module in a subject that you find particularly interesting, such as film or media. And this is one of the exciting things about a Keele degree, one of the exciting things about the education degree. You can, of course, do simply all the modules in your subject of education, but you don't have to. So there is a certain degree of flexibility, but you nevertheless have to do a certain number of modules in education. Single honours, it's 18. For combined honours, it's a minimum of 8 in order to pass. So how do you learn? How do you learn in your modules? Well, there are a number of different ways. First of all, each module is 2 hours a week. Typically, 1 hour will be a lecture. The other hour will be a seminar, sometimes called a tutorial, in which you will use the material from the lectures to engage in debate, discussion, use of video, and you'll be encouraged here to really get involved with talking to your classmates, building good friendship groups, and working together, working collaboratively. It should and is fun. But beyond that, we have something called the Keele Learning Environment, or the KLE, which is the electronic online platform where all of the readings, all of the information, all of the guidance for assessment is kept. This is online, it can be accessed remotely. So even if you can't make it onto campus, you will always have access to these materials. And of course, as well, you will be expected to be doing independent study, thinking about your coursework, thinking about your assignments. But tutors are always there. Tutors will always respond to you. We have a library, which is very well stocked in education books. But in the main, where you learn most will be in the lectures and the seminars. And you have 2 hours of those for each module every week. So 8 hours of registered contact time every week across each semester for your program. So what exactly will you be studying when you arrive at Keele? Well, you can see from the table on this slide the choice and range of modules that we offer in Year 1. Now, I should point out that this choice of modules is only indicative, and new modules will be added as we draw upon wider staff expertise and new staff arrive and so on. But this will give you a flavour of the range and variety of topics we seek to cover. So, for example, if you look at the modules under Semester 1, you can see that the core module is understanding learning. In other words, a module looking at how young people learn in the classroom. We draw upon psychology, learning theory. Understanding how young people learn means, of course, we can ultimately end up teaching them better and more productively. We also have a module in Semester 1 on childhood. This module looks at the tradition of childhood, the concept of childhood, and how that's represented and portrayed, both in the media in this country, but also more globally as well. We have modules relating to the history of schooling, looking at how education developed in the Victorian era and into the 20th century, and also drawing upon expertise in the politics part of our school by looking at education in the context of modern democracies. In semester 2, the core module is Education in Britain, that really brings the story of education right up to date, thinking about how education has changed and developed in the last 40 or 50 years, and what might some of the issues be for people going into teaching today. We have modules relating to sociology and education, very much connected and intertwined together, and also a module looking at poverty in education. People who are in poverty, impoverished, in lower socioeconomic backgrounds will statistically, and it's a sad fact, but statistically do less well at school. And we've seen the impacts that, for example, the coronavirus had on really bringing to light those huge disparities between the rich and the poor. So we consider that relationship here in more detail. One of the other notable things about the program is the chance for you as students to study electives. Now, what an elective choice means is that you can, within the space in your timetable, take modules from a range of other subjects and disciplines. Now, it could be, for example, that you have an interest in history or an interest in literature, so you might be able to take modules from those degree subjects. It could be that you want to carry on with a language that you've been taking maybe at A level, or you want to learn a new language such as Japanese, so you can take modules from our language centre. So there's a real choice that you have, a great deal of choice that you have in the modules, and this choice continues into years 2 and 3, when we also seek to offer a wide and diverse selection of modules. More details of these modules can be found on our web pages at the University of Keele's website, so please do go and have a look at those. But this just offers you a sort of a sense and a flavour of the sorts of issues, topics and areas that we seek to cover in our first year programme. One of the important questions that applicants often have is around assessment. How do we assess? Well, you'll be pleased to know that our education programme at Keele has very few examinations. Of the 22 modules that we offer, only I think 3 have an examination. Instead, we tend to use coursework. And as you can see from this slide, the coursework can come in a range of different forms, whether it's a standard essay, a policy review, a book review, a reflective diary, a portfolio of reflections. And this pattern continues throughout years 2 and 3. Very few of our modules have examinations. Examinations aren't really the best way or the only way to assess, and we recognise that. So very few examinations on our programme, and coursework essays really give you the chance to go into some depth in a particular topic, do some research and investigate it properly. Previous slides hopefully will have shown you some detail about the nature, content and assessment of the course. However, it is far more than that. And one of the great things about the education programme at Keele, and indeed the university more generally, is that it offers you a wide variety and range of further opportunities. So the following slides are going to just run through what some of those opportunities might be and how you as an education student can take advantage of them. One of the most exciting opportunities at Keele is the chance to study abroad. There is a large network of partnership universities at Keele, from those in Canada, the United States of America, down to South America, all across Europe, Asia, Australasia, Africa and so on. In fact, the entire globe is covered by Keele. Typically, we would send 2 or 3 education students every year to go and study overseas. This is a wonderful opportunity, and you can either study for a whole year, usually between your second and third year, which means your degree becomes a 4-year program rather than a 3-year program, Or you may wish to only study for a semester, typically in year 2. Either way, you would have the opportunity to witness another country's education system firsthand and maybe go in and do some teaching in that country's schools. If you are interested in doing this, it is competitive and it can be dependent on results. So please do come and speak to either myself or a member of the global office at the earliest opportunity. But it is a wonderful chance for you to see another country's education system, another country's schools, and to make some fantastic memories. One of the other things that our program offers is the opportunity for placement and field trip. The image on the slide is taken at Summerhill School in Suffolk, the so-called School Without Rules, and refers to a field trip that I did on my Progressive Education second year module 2 years ago. We also have had an education outreach module where students go out into the community to work with local community groups in developing educational resources, and we run a science away day off the back of it, planning fun scientific activities for children. We also have an education placement module where each week students are placed into particular schools, be they primary, secondary or special educational needs schools, where they will observe, teach, help out with children. This is a great way of building up teaching experience and hours spent in school, which is so vital for getting onto postgraduate programs. So we offer a lot of different opportunities at Keele on our program for exploring education outside of the normal classroom. We also have an education society, which is a group set up and run by students for students. So the Education Society promotes all things to do with education and runs many, for example, social events such as balls, speaker meetings, field trips, and really can connect you up with people in the education sector, such as teachers and head teachers and so on. It's a really good way as well of meeting other people on your degree program. Obviously, you meet a lot of people in your classes, but to meet people across the 3 different year groups and to really feel part of a cohort, an academic cohort, all doing the same subject, that's really why the Education Society is really good. And it's run by students, it's independent of staff, and they have a lot of good advice and free activities as well. So again, that's something that you might want to get involved in when you join Keele. One of the great opportunities that Keele provides is the chance to learn language. I mentioned this earlier on in relation to the electives. If you remember the slide with the year 1 timetable, I talked there about the elective choices that you can make. So learning a language, there's 2 ways in which you can do this. First of all, you can enroll yourself onto a language program run by the Language Centre at Keele. Now this can be either carrying on your study of, say, French or German or Spanish that you may have done in school at GCSE or A level and picking up where you left off, or you can choose to learn a new language, and we have expertise in Chinese, French, Japanese, Russian, a whole host of different languages there. The other thing you can do, which is very popular amongst the education students, is to take the modules called TESOL, which is number 1 on this slide, teaching English to speakers of other languages. So if you complete the TESOL course, you'll be given a certificate which qualifies you to go overseas, often into places in Europe, and to teach English to people that don't speak English as a native language. Now, as part of this program, I think you go down to the refugee centre and you work with refugees in developing their English. So it's a challenging program, but it's one that really equips you not just with a qualification, but a range of other skills as well. And the skills that actually, when you come to apply for teaching jobs, will look very, very strong on your CV. So it's a great program, and again, it's all part of what we offer here at Keele on the education course. So you've got your degree. What will you do? What can you do? Well, the following 2 slides will indicate and show that actually there's a whole range of different careers that our students go into. Most, of course, go into teaching, whether that's primary or secondary, but others go into a whole host of other things. And the following two slides, as I say, will show you the career destinations and give you a flavour of some of the things that you might want to consider during your degree, but also afterwards when you've graduated. This slide shows us a pie chart of what our students were doing 6 months after finishing their course in 2018, so it's very recent data. As you can see, 65% of students were doing further study. Most of these would have been on a postgraduate teacher training course or doing a postgraduate teacher training qualification. If you wish to teach, our programme is an excellent springboard into the world of teaching, either primary or secondary. However, it also opens up other opportunities too, and you can see that 25% of our students were in work. Some of these, of course, would have been working in a school and trained by the school, but others would have gone into other career destinations. So our programme is great, not just for preparing you to be a teacher in schools, but also opening up other postgraduate avenue opportunities, such as law, social work, doing PhDs and masters, courses, working with charities, and so on. So there's many varied career destinations that our students have, but most, as I say, wish to go into teaching. And if you wish to go into teaching, there's no better program for you to be on than ours. When it comes to applying for a postgraduate teacher training course, you will apply through UCAS, and you will apply, as you have done for your application for undergraduate degrees, to 3 institutions. Many of our students wish to stay with us. Many of our students wish to take advantage of the opportunities at Keele to do their 1-year teacher training. At Keele, we have something called a SCIT, a school-centred initial teacher training, and we have that in primary and also in secondary. If you wish to be a secondary teacher, just to make you aware, you have to really have at least 40% of your degree credits in the national curriculum subject you wish to teach. So if you wish to be a secondary school teacher, I would strongly recommend that you do a combined honours degree. If you wish to be a primary school teacher, doing a single honours is perhaps the best way to go. But either way, there's ample opportunity for you at Keele, not just to do the undergraduate degree, but then to stay at Keele to do your 1-year teacher training. Both of these SCIP programs are nationally recognised as being excellent and have achieved high levels of recognition for their programs. So, starting at Keele in September, you may very well be on the start of a 4-year journey. And this undergraduate program is there to help you and develop you at every step of the way. So this is the penultimate slide. Hopefully over the course of the previous 20 or so slides, you've got a sense of the course and the programme in terms of what we offer, how we assess, and what opportunities you have were you to join our programme. You'll also have seen through the discussion around education and the coronavirus, some of the ways that we like to get you thinking about education, focusing on contemporary topical issues and debates and the big questions that concern us as people interested in education and passionate about education. The one thing I would suggest and say to you is please do keep in touch with us, or if there's anything that you want to know that you feel hasn't been covered by these slides, get in touch with us, please. My name is Dr. John Howlett, as you know, and my email address as Programme Director is on this slide. We also have the email address here of Tracy Roberts, who is our Programme Administrator. So either call us or email us if you've got any questions that you'd like answering. There's also a link there to our website where you can see a little bit more information about the course and some of the other pages that we have and where we fit in the context of our School of Social, Political and Global Studies, and the link as well to a video on YouTube. So please, as I say, if there's anything that you want to know or you feel hasn't been covered or you're not sure about, get in touch with me and I'll happily get back to you within 24 hours. Well, you've reached the end of the slide set, so congratulations. It only remains for me to say thank you for listening to the slides. Thank you for listening to my audio recordings. I hope they've been useful. Please do get in touch if there's anything you want to know, and I wish you the very best of luck with your studies in the future. I really do hope to see as many as possible in September and meeting you in person. I very much look forward to it. And as I say, if there's anything you want to know, don't hesitate to get in touch. Take care and goodbye.